This is the siege of power, a bird's-eye view of politics. This is political capital, because you can't have one without the other. I'm Karabole Tata, and this is our very first show. Brace yourself. CNBC Africa will be taking you on a wild ride of politics and showing you why it matters to your pocket. Right up there, right now, Africa's oldest liberation movement is tumbling in turmoil. The 105-year-old African National Congress is born out of struggle. But right now, the struggle is about who will run South Africa after the 2019 elections. And the papers are full of it.
Rot-infested ANC needs rescuing, so says former President Thabo Mbeki in the Johannesburg Star. We are witnesses to the moral degeneration in society that is overseen by a self-centered, non-caring leadership that lacks honesty, integrity and a vision for the future. Ouch! But the big headlines of the last week have been about the military takeover in Zimbabwe and the last days of President Robert Mugabe. The Guardian in London carried this morning. Zimbabwe's ousted vice president calls for Mugabe to quit. Emerson Mnangagwa has broken more than a week of silence to call for the 93-year-old leader to accept the will of the people and step down immediately. The Daily Maverick weighs in on the other tack. Mnangagwa, the heir apparent, is cut from the same cloth as Mugabe, it argues. We cannot have a fresh start without a full account from Mugabe and Mnangagwa about what they did, who they did it with, and why they did it. Mugabe wants a dignified exit, so says the Daily News in Harare. President Robert Mugabe is definitely on his way out, but the wily former ZANU-PF strongman wants to negotiate a dignified exit to secure his legacy and that of his young family. Zimbabwe has insatiable desire for Mugabe exit, so says Mnangagwa. In Nigeria, the Guardian carries the word from the former vice president. Further street protests have been called in Harare, raising fears that the political turmoil could spill into violence, the newspaper warns. President Lungu sends KK to Zimbabwe. From the Lusaka Times in Zambia, Zambia is worried about feeling the effects of decline in Zimbabwe. President Edgar Lungu has dispatched former leader Kenneth Kaunda, who is also 93, to persuade Mugabe to step down. You could call it an old pals act.
The ruling African National Congress knows it needs a steady hand, someone who can fend off the growing power of opposition, a political drama made for television. But who will win in the game of politics?
There are 7 candidates in the presidential race. Cyril Ramaphosa, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, Lindiwe Zulu, Zweli Mkhize, Matthews Poza, Jeff Radebe and Baleka Mbete. Of these, Ramaphosa and Dlamini-Zuma are the favourites. Both are likely to name people outside the race as their deputies. Ramaphosa has named Science and Technology Minister Naledi Pandor as his running mate. Dlamini-Zuma is likely to name the powerful kingmaker Mpumalanga Premier David Mabuza as her deputy.
White male domination of our economy is something that we must stop being tolerant of.
Our president is sucking an empty dummy with radical economic transformation. There's nothing like that.
State capture did not start yesterday.
The ANC is in ICU. Someone must take it out.
Everyone has something to say, and tempers are flaring. The political race is on for the leader of South Africa's oldest liberation movement, the African National Congress. The prize for the victor is control over one of Africa's biggest economies.
Sandton, South Africa, 2017 on a summer's afternoon. On the surface, it all looks great. Buildings are going up, cranes everywhere, and millions are being invested into the economy. And beneath the surface, the economy is struggling. On top of that, there's a huge political fight going on that is likely to determine the future of the country.
Manza! Awethu! Matla! Yarona! Ole Patambo, how bate go to
It's all about this man and who will replace him. If ever there was to be a presidency marred by controversy in democratic South Africa, this could be it. Even before he took office, President Jacob Zuma faced 783 counts of corruption. An estimated 246 million rands of taxpayers' money was used to upgrade his private home in Gandla, even though he is paying back some of it. His relationship with the Gupta family has cast a shadow over his presidency. The economy has undoubtedly taken a huge dip under his leadership, with unemployment rising and investments falling. There have been unprecedented protests. For the first time in democratic South Africa, there's been mass calls for a president to step down. President Zuma carries on regardless.
The ANC government has also begun to take a visible and aggressive stance against crime generally in our communities, and to ensure that criminal gangs are put behind bars where they belong. Our communities should not be made to coexist with criminals.
The question is, who is going to replace him? Cyril Ramaphosa, Deputy President, expected to be next in line, business-minded. Too capitalist, say the unions. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, veteran parliamentarian, former African Union head, seen as too close to the president, her former husband. Dlamini-Zuma, seen as a compromise candidate, the unifier. No parliamentary experience. Baleka Mbete, national speaker in the roughest days of democratic parliament. Lack of support, not even the Women's League has endorsed her. Lindiwe Sisulu, roots and a famous name. Outspoken, which has upset some powerful ANC leaders. Jeff Radebe, ubiquitous. Spenforce, maybe his time has passed. Matthews Pasa, no name, distance. Little support, and last time, out against Ramaphosa, he only got 400 votes. This is one of the places where the battle is being fought out. The African National Congress held its National Policy Conference in Johannesburg to tease out how they plan to run the country. It was here that for days, politicians thrashed out their differences at a time when the South African economy is bleeding. On the surface, it was speeches and songs. Behind the scenes, it was a war, and the problems of the party emerged.
Going in, there are two different schools of thought within the ANC around ideas such as white monopoly capital versus monopoly capital, around the expropriation of land with or without compensation. So there have been ideas like that, and we knew that at the end of the day, it will be split along factional lines. And that's exactly what happened. President Jacob Zuma sat in a commission where his allies, was really filled with his allies. You had ANC Youth League President Colin Maina, the Secretary General Njabulo Nzuza, Ekurhuleni Mayor Mzwandile Masina, ANC Youth League KwaZulu-Natal Chairperson Thando Sabela, Andy Lungisa. They were all in this particular commission. And of course, you also had Pravin Gordhan and Derek Hennekom. And at the end of the day, those two really bore the brunt really of that commission.
In this, there were no holy cows. President Jacob Zuma fired the first shot at party veterans, many of them household names, who boycotted this conference in protest against his leadership.
They decided, no, this is not what they want. They want their own. It's a very fun. It's like now a real organization operating. I'm sure they must be having an office or something. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Well, they're very organized. They organize the media and in fact communicate with us in the majority of cases through the media. Now, I'm not sure whether it is true because I've been traveling a lot. I was told that they said to the SGO, they don't think the quality of the discussion here will be at the level. They need serious discussion. So these are the people who claim they have the values and the understanding of the ANC, but the branches that are the organization, they think, no, just riff-raff. They want the discussion at a very high level.
The ANC veterans are millions of people, because the ANC wasn't only supported by 100 stalwarts, it was supported by millions. So I think we have the Veterans League, which is the formal structure of the African National Congress. They are here. I think it's a pity that the 101 who had approached the ANC chose not to come, but we have a full component.
Another of the big issues was state capture, that is the influence of private business on public affairs. Many at the top of the party asked, what's the problem?
State capture did not start yesterday. The examples of people that we would like to see as billionaires today are those that struggled to build their capital. People like Babu Maponya, people like Ndate Motlana, and all those that we come from various provinces. We would have liked to see them being billionaires today. And we are saying everyone who was not in business before '94 and is a millionaire or a billionaire today is there because of the association with the leadership of the movement.
But the biggest fight in this conference was over words. The party agreed to drop the white reference out of so-called white monopoly capital. But it was agreed to push ahead with transformation, if not using the words radical transformation.
It's not government alone that can transform South Africa. There's no argument about where the economy of South Africa sits. There's no argument about who owns the means of production in South Africa. There's no argument about who actually makes money in South Africa on day-to-day basis. There's no argument about who's banking the money on day-to-day basis. We're saying to business, let us engage. Let us have private-public partnership.
One of the big questions here was how will the ANC elect its next candidate for president in December? For the last 20 years, a few thousand branch leaders have decided for the whole party. This year, the call from the Eastern Cape is for the whole party, more than 1 million members, to vote en masse.
We believe that if those ordinary members can no longer be represented by delegates, will wake up and go to a polling station closer to your home and vote, just as we do voting with government. That will help open up, but it's also going to help to incentivize members of the ANC to know that to be a member of the ANC, you have got a right to choose your own leader. But also, even if you've got money, you can't buy a million membership simply because you wanted to be a leader. But also, it's going to make our leaders to appreciate the constituencies. People must be able to be connected to our people. You must not be elected simply because you are on a very good slate.
We don't sufficiently agree with that. We think that the current system where delegates are taken from branches is sufficient.
All the debates are going on very well, including as to how we can actually look at re-engineering our own internal systems, including the selection process of candidates, including ensuring that we select the best candidates, including ensuring that our own systems are impeccable. Because one of the things that is very challenging is when people buy votes and when people use other means of being voted into the position of the African National Congress.
While the ANC top leaders are fighting out leadership battles, South Africans from the streets watch anxiously as their standard of living falls.
While party branches are the ones who will be electing the African National Congress's president this coming December, it is ordinary South Africans who will have the final say as to who runs South Africa come 2019.
ANC, I think, must lose to know ukuthi nathi singabantu yabona and ngaphezulu kwalonto mhlambi andifuni ukuthi iwine because apartheid thing ingawini, but I think ANC must fall by one nje.
I feel like because our parents have always voted for ANC, great-grandparents voted for ANC. Fine, we may not like what they do, but at the end of the day, it feels like ANC is the only party that feels coordinated.
ANC is us, my bro. We're free because of the ANC, you know what I mean? And now, my man, it has to fall because of one person.
I'm undecided between DA and EFF. I don't like them much both, but I'm definitely not voting for ANC.
It shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't be about filling your pockets. It should be about filling your heart. If I've got a leader who can sleep at night and say, yes, I did this much good, and I'm whole inside, and if I died tonight, I'll be peaceful. then I'm happy with that leader.
In the second half, we talk to the big guns.
They had raided the strategic reserve in order to pay salaries of civil servants.
Yeah.
And wiped it out.
You get a sense that there is a hidden agenda that other people have when they chant this whole concept of radical economic transformation.
Stay with Political Capital.
Political Capital spoke to the big guns and took to the streets to find out what the real issues are and what the conflict is all about. But most importantly, who is favored to run South Africa, one of the biggest economies on the continent? Abiwa Mtila reports.
In the next few weeks, the ruling party of South Africa is expected to make one of the biggest decisions in its 105-year history. It's going to choose who is going to replace this man after 8 years in power. A man who has ruffled feathers from the boardroom right down to the streets. This year, hundreds of thousands took to the streets from Cape Town to Johannesburg, calling for President Zuma to step down.
Zuma must go. Zuma must go. We are here to march against President Jacob Zuma. The man must fall. We are not going to be spectators watching while Zuma is destroying our country.
Everyone is ready to take the president out.
Another first for democratic South Africa is that the big names in the ruling party are breaking ranks. The ANC has long been a party of debate, but rarely have its leaders been bold enough to speak out so publicly and frequently, including the man that President Zuma ousted as head of state. He questions how the public purse is being spent.
We've always had in the budget, when we're in government, a strategic reserve. In case there is some emergency somewhere, there must be public funds which you can use to address the emergency. I read a couple of years back, maybe 2 years back, that they had raided the strategic reserve in order to pay salaries of civil servants.
Yeah.
And wiped it out. It's wrong. It's wrong, you see, because I'm saying you are a government. And one day, Given is going to say that Power FM is collapsed and the country is collapsing, please give me 5 rand. But you spent all of it to finance salaries.
Then, the man who stepped in as acting president when Mbeki was kicked out.
When, scandal after scandal after scandal doesn't affect you at all, it means that the ability to guide others has no resonance with the ability to guide yourself. And that's why today, everywhere, I mean, civil society, organized trade unions and other opposition parties and everyone else is calling on the president to do the right thing. When that call is made, and you have the ability to self-criticize, because if you are able to self-criticize, then you would know that it means I've missed my step here, and therefore I need to change course and or do as the people say.
Many other party stalwarts also spoke. Makosi Khoza joined the party when she was 14. By the time she was 47, she had had enough.
When we become so tolerant on leaders that take wrong decisions, like for example, our economy is contracting. We've been trapped in this low growth path for some time, and yet you have a president that will go and just disrupt the entire national treasury. And we don't see that as a crisis. We don't act on that. I have a problem.
Presidential hopeful Cyril Ramaphosa holds the party line, hinting that he could do better.
Sometimes when you listen to it, you get a sense that there is a hidden agenda that other people have when they chant this whole concept of radical economic transformation. Radical socio-economic transformation must be a process through which we are going to, on an overall basis, address the challenges that our people are facing, yes, in relation to the ownership of the economy, the management of the economy, the control of the economy, but in doing so, address the structural problems that our economy has. And it should not be a process through which we are just going to focus on certain individuals, certain families to line their pockets through using this concept of radical economic transformation.
He's not the only presidential hopeful that promises to do better.
The ANC is in ICU. Someone must take it out. If no one takes it out in December, it's going to die. And let's not fool ourselves. In terms of numbers you're referring to, I gave you stats there, and they're not my stats, and you know they're objective. The ANC will not win power in 2019. It's going to be forced in either a grand coalition, where it's a dominant party, or it could be a small party, in which case it will just be in a coalition. You know, those are the prospects of what's coming in 2019. Unless the ANC radically changes all the things which you say they're wrong, I don't think time is on our side. You know, I don't think time is on our side. The downgrade will come, and as you heard, it will take 7 years to come out of that downgrade. We're in a crisis, both political and economic.
The eradication of factionalism is going to be a long process, because it is not just a once-off action. It is something that's going to be linked to rebuilding on the values, political education, bringing back party discipline, and ensuring that there's also actions on those who are involved in untoward activities, those who are involved in corruption, those who are arrogant, those who are not serving our community properly. All of those need to be acted upon so that our people can be convinced that the ANC is acting on some of the things that they've objected to. But it's a long process. We don't believe that you can get all of this sorted out within a short space of time.
Above it all, the opposition, steadily growing in strength, circles like vultures. There is a very real chance that an unpopular ANC could struggle to win at the next elections in 2019.
Fanon makes this point very clear, that these ones from liberation movement, when they take power, they don't want to transform anything for the better. No, they just want to live like their masters. So they become typical businessmen. They get involved in scheming and in dealings. They don't want to be captains of industries. There's a difference between being a captain of industry and being a businessman. Businessmen are these ones who are scheming and clinching deals. You know, businessmen is ANC people. Those ones, they are very good with that. Eh? You want what? Where? No, let's talk. Let's talk. I can organize the guys. I know so and so. We can put it together. None of them talk about how do we create an industry and own it and become the captains.
The message says there can be a post-ANC South Africa. We've got to move from nationalism, as nationalist parties come, in liberation movements, to a democratic era. It says we must form a coalition with parties in South Africa who share constitutionalism, the rule of law, and non-tolerance for corruption, building a capable state, and ultimately ensuring that the best people work for the state. And we believe that we could come together around that, a non-racial movement that could charter a new way for South Africa.
The question is, what would struggle stalwarts such as Oliver Tambo, Steve Biko and Nelson Mandela make of the current state of South Africa? Their descendants and contemporaries also had their say.
Somebody said to me the other day, what do you think he would say? I said, he's talking to us already. I can't put words into his mouth. all I can do is look back and say, what did you and Walter Sisulu and Madiba and Govan Mbeki, what was your moral stand? What was your ethical principles and all of this kind of thing? And are we adhering to that? And I think as long as we do adhere to those principles, to that commitment, etc., which many are, then we can't go wrong.
My grandfather has always said that there are those that even sacrificed more than they did because they died for the struggle for liberation, and some of them bled for the struggle for liberation. And I think in that light, we need to also seek to within ourselves to see if are we really doing enough? Are we really reaching out to the most needy of South Africans?
Died for a just cause, which unfortunately is being trampled upon by those who have chosen to undermine the democratic and the social justice project that we were all about. And I believe that the one way we can honor his memory is to complete the work of freeing our minds from mental slavery.
Whomever will be voted in as the next man or woman at the helm of the ANC at the next elections in 2019 has to convince poor and increasingly disgruntled South Africans that it is the party of prosperity.
The only person that I would like to see is Cyril Ramaphosa because the man is wise.
DA.
As long as kuzoba i-president ezokwazi ukuthi sicabangele because siyavota, but kukumanje mangakutshela ukuthi since from 96 ngabhalisa indlu namanje ngathola ngisaphethe CV.
We have very good people down in the ANC. We all know that. It's just that the main thing I think the country needs is people which are of education.
Most tax-paying South Africans running their businesses in places like Midrand keep working and hoping. Among them, Dr. Aruj Qureshi, who wants more from her future leaders.
All of those ANC members, everyone, if they can just sit and think, how many debts do they have on their heads? That's it. I just tell them, take a piece of paper, write down this day how many of your South African people whose taxes are coming to you and you're eating, how many died? You talk about land reform. Please tell me, how are you going to do it? Please tell me the people who are working so hard, why aren't they getting their dues? I just want to know the system that they're using to divide. Equality is difficult. We are humans. It's very difficult being equal to anyone. But what really matters is humanity. You have this much of it. That's all that South Africa requires.
It's built up to be one of the most hotly contested leadership races in the history of the African National Congress. With all the infighting around it, many are even doubting whether it will take place. The only certainty there is, South Africa's battling economy depends on the victor of the December elective conference to rescue it and lead it into the future. Aviwa Mdila for CNBC Africa.
Well, that's all the time we had on this first ever edition of Political Capital. Remember, we come to you every Thursday and Tuesday at 6:30 Central African Time in the build-up to South Africa's big day, December the 17th, when Africa's oldest liberation movement will have a new president. CNBC Africa will be rolling out coverage till then. Until next time when I see you on Thursday with my guest as we mix politics and capital. Keep it real.